Hey guys, this is EpyksLion here. Just want to let you guys know that this video is very different from what I usually upload. It's kind of like a courtroom drama. You will see me rant passionately about the semantics of a case. So think Phoenix Wright, but set in a fantasy setting. Also, it does cover some pretty heavy themes like suicide and the value of someone's life. So keep in mind of that. But anyway, this is all you're gonna see of EpyksLion. I will be seeing you some other time anyway. This is Lion. Seeing you right now. 30th September, 1738, and a Monday. It was an ordinary autumn day. Nature was dying demonstratively, spreading the aura of its golden coffin wherever it could. A mist of light emphasized this gothic act, which cautiously confirmed the end of all living beings. Grand windows showed this somber sight, shielding the viewer from the words of death. Like some mythical transcendent being, they granted light and knowledge. The rays of the weak autumn sun fell on the ancient bookcases in a dark and aggressive way. Thorn-like adornments were keepers of these books, giving them only to those who deserved them most. In the middle of the room, in an armchair of such thorny style, sat a man, Sir Luthschlosser, a famous mage with a shadowy past. He was holding in his hands a book with a peculiar name, Lotus Eaters. Strangely enough, in this golden and grey atmosphere of doubtful hospitality, the wizard felt the warmth of the universe. It was as if his very being was buttered with olive oil and sprinkled with rare seasonings with a delicate, refined aroma. Golden warmth seemed to make the mage take an eternal siesta. But it was not bound to happen. One careless move, the Luftschlosser's glove was covered in blood. Not understanding, not accepting what had happened, the wizard removed the glove and examined the hand more thoroughly. The cut. The real cut on his hand? 3 long crimson lines. The top of those lines were still bleeding, contrasting slightly with the misty color of his skin, creating a beautiful monochrome picture of the cut. However, the lower down the lines went, the narrower, the more indistinct they became, gradually fading from the pale Luftschlosser's hand. In this way, the wound resembled some kind of sophisticated calligraphy, a clear, aggressive beginning of a line that gradually narrowed and disappeared. Apparently, Luftschlosser got caught on a thorny ornament on the chair, nothing unusual for an ordinary person, but not for a mage, whose body is always protected by dozens of magical barriers. He made a demonstrative gesture with his hands, as if forcing himself to react. It took quite a while before the mage was able to speak again. How? In Luftschlosser's mind, panic thoughts raged in a catastrophic whirlwind, searching for a way out. How is it even possible? I can understand the performance issues with combat spells that are inherently unstable. I may accept the fact of the existence of failures in the magic of squares, regardless of how ridiculous they are. But breaking the elementary protective barrier, what is causing my powers to evaporate? Who dared to make me, the Knight-mage Luftschlosser, so miserable and powerless? Having decided that he must focus on the source of the power, the mage summoned his demonic contract, which guaranteed all his magical abilities. A large scroll with the sigil of his master appeared in front of the sorcerer. What in this document could lead to this ruinous outcome? Duke Luthedor, Lord of the Scarlet Fortress and veteran of the Refundal Rebellion, makes a sacred and eternal pact. That's right, the pact ought to be eternal! After a quick scan of the long list of once favorable conditions, the mage finally found a potential catch. His contract is declared valid until the death of Luthedor's heart. It can't be. It can't be possible! What could even cause his death? Luftschlosser wondered why his powers were fading away. Not disappearing in a single moment, but fading away. Luthedor's death would have immediately freed him from magic, or taken something far more valuable. This suggests that the Duke is not dead yet, but current events indicate that it's only a matter of time. He seems to have been dying for quite some time now. I have to summon him. Even if Luthedor is dismembered and his body is scattered across the universe, even if his very existence is denied, his heart still beats. And that means that he will hear the mage's call. There's no possibility for something else to happen. Luftschlosser swung his staff, and red magic circles with mysterious runes and sigils appear on the floor. That's not the floor! Neat sigils, though. A light breeze appeared in the library, carrying several torn leaves into the room. The green one, which was forcibly torn from the tree, the yellow one, which was just waiting for such a great journey, and the whimsical dark crimson leaves were circling above the magic circle. They seemed to empower the wind, for with each passing second, the elements took over the library with increasing violence. Luftschlosser began to utter the words of an ancient incantation. Untor Luthedor Vart! The monotonous pathos of the words to give the spell aloof power to fight the Bacchic power of the wind. Luthedor Venara! The wind of 3 leaves was unwilling to accept the power of Luftschlosser's ancient knowledge. Antar Luthedor Vart! Venara! The last words, one could see the maniacal, ecstatic madness in Luftschlosser's dark eyes. Like a fanatic blinded by the grandeur of the Gilded Temple, the mage succumbed to the Bacchic force of the wind. Solna! After the incantation, the wind in the room turned almost into a tornado in a matter of seconds and died down just as quickly, revealing a familiar figure to the wizard. Oh, hi, Mark! The majestic figure of Duke Luthedor seemed like nothing but a sterile shell. However, something was doubtful. It was as if some part was shouting and followed its might. The Duke has transcended death itself. Do you think of his possible death? Coming closer, Luftschlosser heard light sounds that resembled the breaking and cracking of bones. Realizing that these could be the Duke's injuries, he decided to examine his body immediately. Already at a distance of 3 steps, the mage could see numerous wounds and burns on Luthedor's body. With each step towards the Duke, the tension only increased, and a cracking, cacophonous uproar forced him to move away. In a moment, Luftschlosser felt the ground shake and realized that was not the sound of bones at all. This is an earthquake in the library. Why would there be an earthquake in the library? The mage decided not to waste a single second and quickly ran to Luthedor's body. However, as he approached the Duke, when part of the floor around them simply crumbled to dust. Luftschlosser, in fear, clung to the body, which was even heavier when it fell, and behaved more like a corpse than something alive. The two fell into a terrible abyss. No matter how much the sorcerer tried not to look down in fear, he could not resist the hypnotic blackness of the abyss. Having opened his eyes into the great darkness, Luftschlosser was unable to withstand it and lost consciousness. Whee! Quattordecim. Did I just swirl back into existence? Loud, wrathful voices, like the morning sun's rays, rescued the wizard from the dreadful abyss. Luftschlosser opened his eyes and realized that he was in the woods of many of his memories. There were several trees with childish sentiments carved on them. Some passed their judgments, others told of their hatred, and others confessed their love. Among the latter was a tiny heart with the letter L inside. Is this a love story between Luftschlosser and Luthedor? The wizard was pulled out of his nostalgic thoughts by the increasingly wrathful voices. Having looked from behind the trees, he saw 2 peculiar, inhumane figures arguing loudly as if nothing but them existed. To see them in more detail, Luftschlosser came closer to them, having left his safe zone, and took notes of every single feature of the figures. These figures called themselves Transcendents, and were godlike beings with almost always pretty extravagant shapes. That is a tree! That is a tree with horse legs! The first Transcendent did undeniably have an appearance that couldn't be more extravagant. The creature had the body of a horse and a large, mighty tree whose roots were hidden in a thick neck. White masks were hanging on the branches, showing the Transcendent's emotions. Oris, nothing is more obvious when it comes to the sin. I declare this incident to be peccatum verum Luthedori. The second Transcendent... What are you? The second Transcendent, whose name was Oris, resembled a chaotic pile of wing razors that were glittering even in such bad weather. Then Luftschlosser looked at a corpus to which the wings were attached. The corpus could have been called a head or a face, if there was anything more than one red eye. Really, Candid? Are you really trying to compare a transcendental doodle to a human being? Oris laughed with quite a bit of tension in his voice. He was trying to take the dominant position in the dispute. At least, that's how Luftschlosser saw the conflict. Suddenly, the unpleasant laughter stopped with a crushing sound. Man, the horse is getting ready to pounce! In the silence of the ancient city park, the wizard was unfortunate enough to loudly crush one of the branches under his feet, attracting the attention of 6 and 1 eye. Oh, Fortuna, the treacherous goddess! For a few seconds, their transcendents stood tensely, checking the wizard for danger. Then they relaxed. Candid even let himself smile. Well, sorcerer, I believe you have a horrendous amount of questions for us. We will be delighted to answer, but there are quite a few things we need to know first. Are you aware of where you are? Nope! I was just trying to check on, my mates, and suddenly here I am in a park. I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know why I'm here. It appears to be an old city park, with the presence of such powerful beings in the midst of the day. It was unexpected enough for me to be astonished. Look at the foliage, Luftschlosser. Does it look like where you came from? Having done as ordered, the wizard noticed that there wasn't a single green leaf on the tree. As if responding to Luftschlosser's astonishment, Candid continued. The day is November 14th, 1716, Anno Mundi, the day of your contract. How do you know that this was the day of my contract? What are you implying? Have I moved in time somehow? Is Luthedor dying because of... Nothing of the sort, truly. You're just in the very core of your master's existence. So, as not to waste our time in further questions, I should add that our argument is the battle for the truth of November 14th. That's right. You're trying to comprehend what, how, and why Luthedor did what he did on November 14th. I don't know, he was probably just down bad or something, or he was bored. I don't know. Luftschlosser was petrified, realizing what was happening to Luthedor. The very existence of Duke is being broken, belittled, and rewritten through decades of torture. Every smallest memory was turned into a farcical illusion, and every emotion was painted with cheap brightness. After the shock, a quiet sorrow, with a strong determination to take revenge for Luthedor, came to Luftschlosser. I shall do anything to ensure that his death will never have been afflicted in such a cruel manner. My transcendent lords, I have an offer for you. What could it be? As a participant in this incident, as a third party and ultimately as a human being, I offer you my just judgment in this majestic battle of wits. There's a battle going on? Do not refuse, Transcendence. I dare to state that your powers are equal and without anyone else will last forever. Who, if not a third party, will be able to free you from this sorrowful eternity? Who, if not a third party, will be able to resolve your dispute? Well, I don't object to the participation of a neutral party in our debate. Dubito, Luftschlosser is not a factio neutra. I think I understand his intentions. Candid's eyes, hostility, made the wizards uncomfortable, no matter how well he concealed his feelings. How unfortunate, Candid, that even 1,000 years could not change the fact that you have so little faith in humanity. But do as you wish. If Luftschlosser is suspicious, then we just need to nullify the possibility of him acting in accordance with his impure purpose. What is this about? The wizard's stress has grown even more. Probably the Transcendents already knew about this possible plan. It's nothing of great importance. We will accept you as a judge on one condition. The battle will not end in a draw. Damnation! Such a condition seemed to be suffocating for Luftschlosser. Of course, it would be nonsense to come to the same outcome with a judge. I do understand your concern. Very well, then proceed with your oath. Is this really necessary? Why don't you just believe me? Nevertheless, the wizard's tension had disappeared, changing to a quiet sense of doom. If the Transcendents demand his oath, then they should not regret it later, right? Well then, I swear by all of my powers, by the heart of Luthedor, and by the Emperor Versitian himself. Battle shall not end in a draw. I swear to fight to the end. I swear not to surrender. Degero to destroy illusions of November 14th. And I swear to defend the truth of this day till my very last breath. So with these oaths, and in the glorious name of Duke Luthedor, I proclaim the beginning of the battle. A strong wind rose in the park, dramatically overblowing Luftschlosser's red clothing. In the thunderous storm of trees, the wizard seems to hear a familiar deep and low laughter. The battle cannot last an eternity. Therefore, we must create an undeniable ground of knowledge that will become a battlefield. Oris summoned a black grimoire with golden embroidery and gem embellishments in the style of ancient rulers. As the transcendent of the point, I have the privilege of making the rule. Candid and Luftschlosser consented silently, having no objections. Oris was flipping through the grimoire's pages, choosing the most advantageous rule for him. Truths of 7 colors. Not bad. It's just self-repetition, isn't it? Knights of truth, lie, and deception. This will not do. Visualization. The winged transcendent had looked at his opponent as if examining them for something and declared, "The visualization of the incident will become the basis of a battle, as it is the most fitting method. The rule is simple. With the consent of all parties, the visualization is proclaimed as the unshakable and absolute truth until the very end of the battle. The point to create the visualization is assigned to the transcendent of the point. What happens if there is a disagreement between the parties regarding visualization?" Luftschlosser clearly saw how disadvantageous the situation was for Candid in this battle, so Oris must be limited in his power. However, the wizard did not believe that he was capable of limiting Oris with his power alone, so he decided to incite disagreement between the transcendents before the battle began. In such a situation, if the battle happens at all, these two will be murdered by each other, which would facilitate Luthedor's fate. In case of disagreement, a party can propose its own visualization, which will coexist with the original one. And what happens if the opponent doesn't have such a skill? With a brilliant, even slightly mocking pathos, Oris responded, "They do have a choice, to agree or to admit their defeat and renounce their claims for all of eternity." Yeah, it's obviously a wicked rule. Well, Candid, do you think this rule is worthy of this battle? Are such conditions acceptable for you? Candid kept a calm expression on his mask and easily replied, "Yes, I am good at visualization. Ergo, I don't see any problem with the last condition of this rule. It was a predicament that he possessed this ability." That's not what I'm talking about, Candid. It's about the agreement between parties. Are you sure you can instantly and confidently verify the reliability of every single visualization detail? Your opponent can easily replace or remove small details that you wouldn't notice if you had not had them in mind from the very beginning of visualization. Do you agree to such a high probability of being deceived before the battle begins? Candid's mask smiled lightly at these words. "Thank you for your concern, Luftschlosser. It seems you are mistaken for what transcendents are. Or did you think I was human?" Continuing to laugh lightheartedly, Candid gave a gesture of consent to Oris's new rule. The disappointed Luftschlosser could only accept this absurdity. Thus, by the agreement of the parties, the visualization rule came into force. Therefore, I asked Oris, the transcendent of the point, to show his visualization of the incident on November 14th. With a dramatic gesture of Oris's wings, 2 figures appeared in the park. 14 November 1716. Luftschlosser and Luthedor, the parties of the demonic contract. The majestic figure of the Duke, who had just been summoned by a mortal, was strikingly bizarre. Usually, wizards command demons to take human form, but Luftschlosser would not dare express such a desire. It was nothing but a pure miracle to him that he was able to invoke and control a demon of such high rank. So the Duke began the conversation first, enchanting all around with his melodic and powerful bass. "You shouldn't be afraid of the demon you can control, Luftschlosser. In fact, I have no wish to hurt you. That would be a nonsensical cruelty." Luftschlosser was still silent. It seemed that at any moment he might lose his ability to breathe. Even 20 years later, the wizard could not understand whether it was reverence, fear, or something much deeper. "Well, unfortunately, I already know the reason why I'm here." A light wave of wind, and near them appeared a large scroll with the Duke's sigil. "I'm glad to give you the power you crave and even more. As for offering, I will not take much." At that moment, Luftschlosser finally regained his ability to speak. "I have to sacrifice my soul, don't I?" What kind of medieval fantasia is this? Of course, you shouldn't have to do something like that. You'll be asked for a little favor, that's all. In return, I will grant you magical powers, the right to study and train yourself in the magic field, and the title of Knight-mage. It looks pretty excessive, to be honest. What kind of favor is it? Luftschlosser's craving for magic was obvious, but to trust the demon completely, especially before deciding on the contract, would be foolish. Your words make me think about whether it is worth postponing this matter at all. Well, fine, if you want to be a wizard, then fulfill this condition right now. With a loud, crumbling sound, a round, dark portal appeared near Luthedor. This portal showed the wizard a young man in his early 20s. This guy had stood on a small wooden chair and was holding a new white rope in his hands. Right above his head was an old-fashioned red chandelier. Quite strangely, the portal was showing a static picture. There's nothing truly strange about this. This moment is important for fulfilling the condition. Obviously, the guy wants to kill himself, and I have no intentions to allow him to do that. Who is he, and what is my task? Luftschlosser was quite stressed. A person on the edge of death as an object of service does not sound very pleasant. His name is Scrapson, and his fate is tragedy. From the very first days of his life, he was doomed to lead a poor, unfortunate life. However, one day his misfortune seemed to have a chance to finally end. Scrapson fell in love with a girl. It was his first love. Her amber eyes were his most precious treasure, and her long black hair was an ancient magical force that enchanted him. Alas, she had a guy in her heart, and even more, they were planning a wedding. And then Scrapson learned the dark side of love. He couldn't stop thinking about her, wanted to forget her, but at the same time, he was dying without being able to see her face. Scrapson had lost his mind because of his love, and came to the wedding with a revolver from his late father. In a manic, delirious madness, he was killing the guests, relatives, and eventually, his beloved ones. Then he woke from this madness. Scrapson saw an inexplicably cruel scene. Among the greenery of the old forest, white tables and decorations, there were dozens of bodies and pools of blood. He approached the body of the bride and was frightened. Her white dress was covered in crimson spots, and her right amber eye had been hit with a bullet. After such a description, Luftschlosser felt a true disdain for Scrapson. He ran away from the wedding as far as he could. His feet did not stop for a second, but his eyes could not forget what he had seen. Having realized that he could not escape, Scrapson decided to end it all. Prison would be a second hell for him, so death seemed to be the only way out. A disgraceful man, I have to admit. After being silent for a while, Luthedor replied, "It's good that we're on the same page about him. However, you say you couldn't let him commit suicide. Why is that so?" "There are some reasons, but I cannot tell you about them. What is important is that his death is inevitable. But suicide is not an option. That is why you are here." Light blew of the wind, and the golden revolver appeared in Luftschlosser's hand. "Do I kill him myself?" The Duke's offer was extraordinary. The wizard had to sacrifice the life of a stranger for the magical power. This situation reminded the wizard of the Mandarin paradox he had read about in his childhood. If you had the opportunity to kill a wealthy aristocrat and inherit all his fortune without lifting a finger, and no one would ever know about your choice, would you refuse this offer? The wizard believed that he could do it easily. According to him, only a truly greedy beast could kill a person for money. However, this very situation was just a free variation on an ancient motif. Firstly, the fortune turns into the discovery of a whole magical world, lending a great power for almost eternity. Of course, money can guarantee you power, but unlike magic, it is a finite resource. Secondly, the victim of the paradox is usually unknown since they are perceived as a tool to achieve the goal, and not as a person with their own desires and aspirations. Very few people would really want to kill this victim, knowing about his happy family and numerous friends. However, this is not Scrapson's case. Contempt for him would be recognized as righteous, and capital punishment would be merciful. And the third distinction is that the victim decided to commit suicide. Therefore, the person's fate will not change. Scrapson would not be alive tomorrow, or even within the next hour. So the only thing Luftschlosser had to do was fulfill the condition. In a decisive manner, he pointed a gun in front of the portal, targeting Scrapson's head. Slowly moving the finger to the trigger, the wizard tried to gather forces to do what he was supposed to do. Alas, something was wrong. Why do I even doubt? Leaving aside the fact that Scrapson is a disgusting man who deserves punishment, he does want to die. Who am I to deny the wishes of other people? Screaming, even growling with anger and despair on his face, Luftschlosser shot 3 times into Scrapson's head. That's a It seemed that he would cry like some berserker from an ancient legend. Remarkably, the victim's body should have fallen on the floor after shots. However, that's not what happened. Shrapson was transformed into dozens of green, yellow, and purple leaves that were waltzing in the room until they disappeared. Luftschlosser saw an empty room that seemed to have been abandoned for years. No drop of blood, no trace of murder. Ideal Mandarin paradox. Congratulations, Luftschlosser. You are now the Knight-mage with all the powers you have desired. The wizard was still shocked by what he had done. He was unable to even move. And let this golden revolver be a reminder of your debut in the world of magic. In that moment, the two figures stopped and disappeared with a single move of Oris's wing. Luftschlosser still had doubts about what he had done that day. Did I really have the right to do that? What if Shrapson decided not to kill himself and atone for his sins later? However, such internal monologues are always such a struggle of several thoughts. Therefore, Luftschlosser did not intend to tolerate accusations from himself. Is there a big difference between atonement in the form of execution and suicide? Do you still have to blame yourself for the crimes of 20 years ago? After all, it was Luthedor's will. If the executioner is empowered with the will of the worldly ruler, then you were the bearer of the will of a much higher authority. Despite the arguments, the old annoying sense of guilt was triggered by that, appearing as a sharp pain in the stomach. The wizard looked around to distract himself from his obsessive thoughts of the past. Immediately I just stared at these two. However, within a few seconds, the transcendent stopped moving, and the park around them lost its pale colors. Luftschlosser was aware of this technique, but it was possible, was it not? The bass from the visualization resounded again over the gray-colored park. Greetings, Soul Knight Luftschlosser. How are you enjoying the hospitality of my offspring? The wizard could not determine where the voice was coming from. It seemed to be everywhere in the park. I'm delighted to see you, the Duke, but I can't help but wonder how it is possible for me to speak to you. Wouldn't that mean that you're alive? It would, and somehow it would not, Luftschlosser. As you have already guessed, my very existence has been distorted and denied. However, it's not the reason why I'm wasting my powers to speak to you. I am to purge you of some misconceptions you had enough stupidity to believe. Luftschlosser found his conversation with the disembodied Luthedor quite strange. Apart from the grey dead world and the voice, nothing confirmed the very existence of this dialogue. Has the wizard become delirious? Oh, Knight, if you are insane, you have fallen into madness long ago from this very moment. Speaking of which, Luthedor was silent, but for some unknown reason, Luftschlosser lacked the breath to speak further. Despite the fact that the wizard could not see the Duke, he felt as if he were under the power of the demonic cold gaze. It seems you are stupid and pathetic enough to have fallen into this trap, Luftschlosser. The contract and the murder of Shrapson were entirely your decision and your responsibility. The reason for your ridiculous moral turmoil is the endless greed, your desire to be everything at once. With Luthedor's anger, the greyness of the park took on more and more sinister and acute forms. Your attempts at self-justification seem all the more hypocritical in light of your first anniversary of the contract. Shall I remind you of what happened in Culpam, the village of your parents? The sudden memory made Luftschlosser petrified with fear. He could have borne anything but a reminder of the insanity of Culpam. Well, this time, I will forget about your accusations regarding that the purpose of my arrival is different. Luftschlosser's surroundings returned to their former light gray shades. I'm afraid you have no idea what is and will be happening there, so I should give you that idea. That is very generous of you. It is. First of all, you should understand one axiom for these battles. Nobody cares about the truth. What? The sentence did not sound loud, rather the words, riding light wind, spread and filled everywhere, not even being a sound, but magic. And don't care either. Wishing for the truth is dangerous and laughable. Therefore, the only thing you should strive for is the best position for yourself, should you not, Luftschlosser? It is true. I've had this thought in my heart for 20 years, so I cannot wish for anything else. The wizard's fear of Luthedor was pretty noticeable regarding the mesmerizing power of his voice. I'm glad we agree. The second important thing about the battles is the concept of the point of transcendence. All three of my offsprings claim to be fragments of my personality, which they are not. Furthermore, they should be perceived as misconceptions. Their own personalities may have much in common with me, since they exist only in the Scarlet Fortress, but they are not me, which is the reason for everyone to consider them a fiction. Having predicted the next question from Luftschlosser, the Duke allowed himself a small deviation in his speech. Well, offspring number 3 will appear soon enough. There's a third! But let's get back to what the point is. You can compare it to the keep of a large castle. On one hand, it's the most protected part of the castle. On the other, losing the keep means losing everything, including the life of the Lord. It was too specific to be a coincidence. Luftschlosser was horrified at how effortlessly Luthedor became aware of his plans. I thought the bloodbath in the Scarlet Fortress was not what you needed, the Duke. Do I have any other options? The existence of these 3 is an obstacle to my full resurrection. I bet you have already understood why. If Luthedor cannot coexist with a transcendence in the same time and space, then it's quite simple. The Duke was split into 3 parts, which now exist separately from him, like a lizard's tail. If we imagine Luthedor as a whole complete object, each transcendent would represent a third of him, as a result of such deviation. Luftschlosser, no! I've already said that the offsprings are not fragments of my personality. Then what are they? Like, if they're not a third of you, what are they? Then what is a hindrance from your resurrection? The mathematical analogy was a good one, but it was misused. As my descendants and rulers of Scarlet Fortress, the offsprings have never known me, so they only have a vague idea of what I have been. However, as the quite influential beings in these lands, they have the power to add a lot of magical essence to their assumptions about me. What would that mean for you? And how does the analogy relate to that? Their visions have been transformed into certain ethereal beings that hinder my existence. Compared to them, I am a complete personality, whereas they are only a third of such personality. That implies a coexistence of 2 parallel personalities, which is impossible and leads to destruction. On the one hand, there's me. On the other, there are these assumptions of these 3. Now, you have to put it all together and understand why you are here. After quite a long monologue by the Duke, Luftschlosser did finally have a chance to think about everything he had heard. Not all the pieces fit together, but the wizard was not ready to give up. The first thing Luthedor pointed out was that the transcendents were not the fragments of the personality, but rather manifestations of false ideas about it. Wrong ideas are bigger than boundaries of the personality imprinted in the past, and so they try to hide and deny these boundaries in every possible way. In this case, the point of the transcendent is the biggest violation of the paradigm of this idea, and that is why it is the weakest point of each of the transcendents. This connection was easy enough to see, but what about these ethereal beings? If the transcendents were the embodiment of these fictitious ideas, how and why do they create visions of ideas embodied in the other? Wouldn't this be a self-repetition without much meaning? And why was Luthedor concerned with these ethereal beings and not with the transcendents, if they were, according to him, the same? Something was definitely wrong here. It seemed the answers to those questions had not yet reached Luftschlosser's mind. I understood what I should do now. I do hope so. This battle is about the point of Oris, so your objective is clear. See you soon, Luftschlosser. After Luthedor's words, the park returned to its gloomy but much more varied colors, and time continued to move westwards. This is the end of the incident. Is there anything else in this vision you would disagree with? Candid? Luftschlosser? Accept the visualization as the basis of our battle. I have no objections. Thus, I proclaim the beginning of the battle for the truth on November 14th. The parties will declare their own judgment on this incident. Oris, the transcendence of the point, will come first. My opinion is simple. The events of November 14 showed Luthedor as, at the very least, morally neutral personality. But that only applies to the things that the Duke was obliged to do to maintain his own existence. As for his actions, controlled by his free will, Luthedor is the noble demon. Very well, now the opposing party will make a point. My point will be the polemical. The contract with so many loopholes, concealed from Luftschlosser, is quite contradictory to the claim of nobilitas Luthedori et, after all, the veritas of the story. And that is why this question will be my first thesis. Is Luthedor telling us the truth about Shrapson's sins? That's a useless idea, Candid. According to the preliminary agreement, you are not in a position to question the visualization in such an absurd matter. So the answer is not ambiguous, as you might think. The sin story is accurate, and you have already agreed to it. How ignorant of me. I must have misunderstood that in this visualization, it's the truth of the events that is absolute, not the truth of words. Candid smiled lightly, Oris watched cautiously. Luftschlosser had decided that he wouldn't intervene unless it was absolutely necessary. That's why he continued to observe the battle without much thought. After all, his role here was merely to choose sides. The visualization showed a small scene with two creatures having a dialogue. Then one of the creatures shot into the portal, after which the human figure inside disappeared. And that's what I recognized as the Veritas. The impertinence of such a judgment was infuriating for Oris. Only a few minutes had passed and his opponent was already rejecting the very basis of the battle itself. I will not ignore the fact how wretchedly you had misinterpreted the visualization. Honestly, I'm on Oris's side here. We're not trying to verify anything that was beyond the scene itself. We are trying to verify the truth of this matter. While yes, Candid is making a good point here that we can't know for sure whether Luthedor is telling the truth. But at the same time, I feel like Candid is probably reading too much into the situation. But at the same time, I do appreciate the fact that Candid is trying to dig deeper into what the situation is actually all about, whether or not Luthedor is telling the truth about the situation. But, oh god, I have no idea who to side with here. The first part of your vision may be true, and the second part suggests that there was no murder at all. Your preposterous suggestion turned the incident of November 14th into some kind of shooting gallery. Actually, yeah, we never actually killed a guy, did we not? Do I need to summon the soul of Shrapson to confirm that he is dead? Would that be enough? Candid was shocked by these words. Of course, Shrapson is dead, but denying it is a good method for the destruction of Oris's naive interpretation. The summoning is just a bluff, isn't it? Oris is the last person who would want him to appear. It implies a truthful testimony, which obviously wouldn't be helpful to him. However, Candid did not want to take any risks, so he calmly replied, "Bluffing is a technique without elegance, Oris. Obviously, my main point is different. And you already have accepted the assumption mea. Assumptio mea. Although the events of the visualization are true, the words of the characters may be regarded as mere mendacium. Ergo, Historia Luthedori about Shrapson's sins cannot be confirmed." Understandable? But at the same time, what reason would Luthedor have to lie? Literally, the only reason why we even brought Shrapson out in the first place is just to prove that, okay, fine. You want to do something for me? Okay, shoot this guy. That's all you need to do. That's all. Yeah, he's bad. He's totally bad. The guy wasn't even there. I don't even know if the guy existed at all. Oris paused for a moment, and then his expression changed to mocking and slightly arrogant. And what is your point, Candid? I'm not willing to accept your version in any way, and I won't do that. But let's assume that Luthedor did lie. How does that contradict my general opinion of him? The mere fact of lying to your own client when signing a contract makes it immoral. He only brought the guy in because I wouldn't sign the goddamn contract. Because I kept saying that I can't get infinite power for nothing. It's look, I don't want your soul. Maybe I just want a small favor. But what if it's bigger than I thought it was? No, fine, just kill this guy. I don't care. This guy is a sinner. I don't care. Shoot him. That's all. That's how the situation reads to me. That's what I'm thinking of here. I hate to disappoint you, Candid, but there is no immoral interpretation of this alleged lie. Luthedor defamed a certain person who was on the verge of suicide, and there could only be two reasons for this. Also the fact that we were shooting a guy who was supposedly on the verge of unaliving himself. There is, like, it won't even tamper with the flow of space-time whatsoever. The first is that Luftschlosser could not have killed a happy man who was in his early 20s. So this lie helped the wizard to achieve what he wanted the most, his magical powers. But that's immoral to Shrapson. If he really was a happy man, then intentions Luthedor in sacrificing him for Luftschlosser's magical majestas are just that. Immoral. Shut up, Candid! I don't care about what you think! You are a tree horse! The second reason is that Shrapson might want to die, but not commit suicide. And that is why Luthedor could lie about Shrapson's sins to get someone to kill him as a pseudo-lynching. How can you be so sure that Shrapson was not happy with his life? If he was, he would never have known the Duke, and you know that as well as I do. But your thesis is destroying the rules of the game, therefore I deny it. The story of Shrapson's life is, and should be acknowledged as true. The story of Shrapson's life is a manipulation of Luthedor. Oh! Let's see, the story of according to the rules, the reliability of the story shouldn't be doubted. The reliability of the story is not proof with evidence. Wait, what? Which option? What? According to the rules, the reliability of the story shouldn't be doubted. The very rule of the visualization, to which all parties have previously agreed, denies the thesis. And since Candid has agreed to this battleground, the question of reliability contradicts the rules, and therefore should not be discussed further. Precisely. I hope I won't hear any more arguments based on breaking the rules. But let me point out the elephant in the room. The very fact that Luthedor, Princeps Culpam, caused Luftschlosser suffering over the years, having made him a murderer, makes the incident of November 14th immoral. That's the thing, like, yeah, I kind of have to live with the fear that I might have killed someone, but at the same time, I consented to it, you dumb freaking tree! What? It was Luftschlosser's decision to kill Shrapson. Luthedor only gave him the reason and opportunity to do so. And besides, the title of the Prince of Guilt obliged Luthedor to do immoral things, otherwise he would not have survived. So all this time, these terrible feelings were caused by Luthedor. And he knew of the suffering this murder would cause me? Luftschlosser was petrified at the realization of the nature of the Duke. Meanwhile, the surroundings had darkened, and the Transcendence figures had transformed into black shadows. They began to speak, but there was only one voice, the voice of Luthedor. This simple-minded wizard finally realized what's going on. After that, Luftschlosser heard a loud and unpleasant bass laugh. This laughter seems to be everywhere at once, mocking the hopeless wizard. Do you know what the funniest part of your pathetic suffering was, Luftschlosser? Of course, I have temporarily erased your memory of my title, but in all those 20 years of fear, you never opened your old grimoire, where it was written in red and white. Duke Luthedor, the Prince of Guilt. It's ironic, isn't it? Your fear and stupidity have made you responsible for so much suffering caused by guilt. Therefore, it is your fault, Luftschlosser. After these words, the wizard finally came to his senses and quietly objected. How can I be blamed for this? Oh, so you're being foolish. As usual, I should remind you why you are here, Luftschlosser. You must fight for my resurrection, wizard. Nothing is more important. How? Dare you say something? How is that beneficial to me now? After this outrageous remark, Luthedor was silent for a while, as if pausing or being surprised. Well, I see you've forgotten that you are nothing without magical powers, haven't you? I can obtain them from other transcendents by simply assisting them with their struggle. At least I will keep some of my morals. Luftschlosser, what an idiot you are. Well, if you want to talk about morality, I will give you a moral dilemma to think about. Now you have realized that your moral turmoil was caused by me, so your life will be much better without me at all. The logic of all immature people like you tells you to act against me. However, that would require you to support Horus and his flattering ideas of my actions. Furthermore, you would have to acknowledge me as a noble demon who did nothing wrong on November 14th. Ugh, I can feel that disappointment and discomfort in your soul. It is the essence of pleasure for a damned demon like me, isn't it, Luftschlosser? Of course, you may disagree with Oris and support Candid to reveal the truth of my deeds. But Oris, apart from this hypocrisy, has the kindest morals, sees the good in everyone, and to tell the truth, he wants to give me a chance at a new existence to atone for my sins. He is a saint by these standards, especially compared to other offsprings. Therefore, in addition to my resurrection after a couple of battles, Candid's victory will result in the brutal murder of the only moral being in the Scarlet Fortress. Am I clear? So what is the price of the truth, Luftschlosser? I will observe the battle and your judgment of it. I suppose you may think that simply preventing my resurrection will be enough, so I have to disappoint you. I am not a human. I exist outside my shell, in the guilt of thousands of mortals, and if you will not help me, someone else will. Now, both of your choices are hypocritical, and therefore, they will provoke gigantic amounts of guilt. Whatever you choose, I will benefit from it. Continue your mental fast. I am very curious to see how your moral downfall will go. After that, Luthedor laughed for the last time, and the park returned to its usual colors. The round was coming to an end. Luthedor was doing only what was necessary to survive. I actually agree with that. Luthedor didn't inform Luftschlosser of all the consequences of the contract, which I consider to be immoral. What? I'm gonna say that I'm fully responsible for all consequences of the contract. Luftschlosser's voice quivered as he continued. It is true that Luthedor could have kept the details secret, but it was purely my decision and my fault to trust without any verification. What? Obviously, this is not a tua culpa at all. Luftschlosser himself admitted it, so your thesis was false, Candid. Having said that, Oris let out a short, arrogant laugh and looked at his opponent with disdain and triumph in his eye. Well, Candid, now we must move on to more serious matters. I wonder if you're able to deny. This! Oris flew 3 or 4 meters above the park, and then a brilliant glow appeared around him, blinding every— Ah! God, Oris, I am on your side! Why are you blinding me too? My eyes! Then the glow transformed into a large, transparent sphere that transcended what's inside. The bearer was inscribed with hundreds of ancient sacred spells, though they were unreadable as the sphere was fastly revolving around Oris. The mercy of Shrapson's murder is absolute. With these words and a loud metallic sound, 2 hemispheres appeared around the transcendent, rotating around the smaller orb. The very fact that they were 2 halves created the naive illusion of the possibility of piercing Oris's heart without even touching the hemispheres. But the aggressive movement of the spheres clearly showed how foolish this idea was. Luthedor's decision to kill Shrapson saved the guy from the cruel humiliation in front of evil and judgmental human eyes. I believe in that. A thunderous metallic sound announced the appearance of a new defense. On Oris's right wing, a powerful masculine figure as tall as the highest tower of an ancient castle appeared. The deity held in his hands golden spears, ready to pierce any enemy of his master. And also, it was salvation from the afterlife in the Hoppy Forest. With a terrifying cracking sound, a huge tree with myriads of golden leaves appeared on the left wing of the Transcendent. A human mask with distorted features was on the mighty trunk. Red eyes roguishly looked out from the deep dark orbites. Also, wait, are these sleeves? Oh my god, I thought they were stars for a moment. This sight caused Candid to make unusual clicking sounds, which most likely meant irritation or something close to it. Such a creature was obviously some kind of mockery. Finally, even the very act of death was merciful. Shrapson just turned into leaves, disappearing in the air. Yes, that's the thing. It was not a painful death. Luthedor could have caused any amount of pain to this man, and he obviously deserved it. He obviously deserved this death. All I had to do was pew pew pew, he turned into leaves. I don't know whether leaves feel pain when they're off the tree, but still. Parallel with his words, thousands of golden leaves began to fly around the giant defense system of which Oris was the core. Grandeur, The site looked like a mighty planet, with silent and somber satellites levitating around it, and finally surrounded by a golden asteroid belt. So Candid, what are you going to do? I am looking forward to your ridiculous attempts to ruin my defense. I'll start with the last thesis, the thesis simplicissima. How can it be misericordia to simply erase a man from existence, as if he had never lived? Parallel to his words, a green arrow formed, pointing at the belt of golden leaves. But as soon as it flew up to the belt, Horus answered, As if! Shrapson had no fate but death, therefore painless death is nothing but mercy. I agree there. I really agree there. The green arrow struck the golden leaves with a thud and immediately turned to dust. But did Luthedor have the right to take away Shrapson's ability to choose? I honestly can't side Candid whatsoever, because, yeah, on one hand, like, I'm a major proponent of, like, people being able to choose for themselves, but at the same time, Shrapson was already at the end of his life, and he was going to die anyway. And if he had decided to kill himself, according to so many, like, religious lore, like, if you kill yourself instead of, like, dying from natural causes, or, like, die on battlefield, or what have you not, like, he would have immediately been, like, claimed by hell itself. It was a mercy killing. And on top of that, like, heck, he wasn't a great person at all. Like, do you want to give Shrapson more choices when clearly he wasn't gonna make any of the right ones? Shrapson was about to commit suicide, so taking a few seconds out of his life doesn't make the whole thing immoral. Besides, this guy could have even prolonged his suffering by slowly suffocating in a noose instead of breaking his neck. Oh my, yeah, that's the thing. Oh god, that would have been so much more gruesome rather than turning into leaves. This is further proof of Luthedor's merciful nature. That golden spear flew towards Candid. A second later, the Transcendent felt a sharp pain in his right front leg. Looking down, he saw that the spear had pinned his leg to the ground, preventing him from moving at all. Oh no, Horus, that's the end of your foolish trickery. The mere possibility that Shrapson would have taken longer to die doesn't give Luthedor an indulgentia. And what immoral thing has he done in choosing this method of murder? He took away not only Shrapson's possibility to choose, but also his memory. He oversees time! You know this because I'm right here! I'm from the future! I know that this happened! What the frick, Candid? Think about it, Horus. This method killed Shrapson unexpectedly, simply by erasing him from his existence. Under such conditions, the boy's anima would simply not remember his death. The golden spear in Candid's leg disintegrated into dust, which gradually spread across the park. And if the human soul still considers itself alive, then in this way, Luthedor had created myriads of mental suffering for Shrapson, which is perhaps the most cruel Moors of all. And now is my chance to use your trick, Horus. What are you implying? To prove the immorality of this method of killing, I'm going to summon Shrapson. You're bluffing, just like I was at the beginning. Patientia, Horus. You have the opportunity to verify if I am bluffing. My offer is simple. You withdraw your golden leaves and I non-convocable Shrapson. Excellent comedy, Candid. Candid left his remark without comment. Instead, he raised his front right foot above the ground in a special mystical gesture. A small magical circle appeared under his foot, glowing green. Go on with the battle. You're not fooling anyone with this. I had no such intentions. The green light began to emit a green mist, like the delusions of someone enchanted by a green witch. Slowly spreading across the park, the fog seemed to stop the heat of the battle and advised us to take a break. However, Horus's impression was quite different, which made him quickly surrender this level of defense. Touché. Your pathetic bluff has worked. I'm withdrawing the golden leaves. However, I seriously doubt that you can really achieve anything more with such cheap tricks. The leaves began to move faster, gradually disappearing in the golden radiance of the transcendental forest. The green mist disappeared at the same second. Their fear of the true spirit of Shrapson is so great that they would rather declare their own defeat than give a word to the unfortunate soul. The hypocritical words of the Scarlet Fortress as it is. So let's move on to your other golden dogmata. A single word in them is a veritas Luthedori. If you think that your pseudo-Latin gives any base to your absurd claims, you're mistaken, Candid. Also, I'm noticing that about Candid. Candid keeps using a lot of Latin phrases, which I feel like Candid's trying to make himself like sound smarter than he really is, but he is just a tree. What do you oppose to the dogma of salvation from the death under the judgment of human eyes? What is the certainty that the execution will be public? What would such a morally low person be concerned about condemnation? Where is the certainty that the execution will be public? Why would such a morally low person be concerned about condemnation? And finally, why would death with judgment be considered an unjust fate for Shrapson? I'm kind of like poking into Candid's logic here, because on one hand, Candid is saying like, why would such a morally low person be concerned about condemnation? They don't want to be condemned, okay? They know it's about to happen. They dread it happening, okay? No one wants to be condemned. And as for like where Candid says, why would death with judgment be considered an unjust fate for Shrapson? It is a just fate. Okay, it is a just fate that Shrapson would be like condemned to death or like what have you. But here's the thing, Candid, you are grasping at straws here. What the frick are you going on about? It doesn't matter if the execution was public or not. The details of the case and the fact of the execution would have been made public, which means torture for the last moments of Shrapson's life. Exactly, that's the thing. He wouldn't die. He wouldn't have the mercy of like dying. He would either be put into like he would either be like thrown away somewhere, like he would probably be put in a prison or something, or he would be tortured for an indeterminate amount of time until it's his time to be executed or till he actually dies. Like, that is so much more cruel, Candid. Everyone fears mass condemnation and its consequences. Shrapson is no exception. We're not talking about justice. We're talking about Luthedor's mercy, you old nag. The enchanting battle of green arrows and golden spears was striking in its mystical, supernatural powers, which seemed to be so powerful that it broke the principles of existence itself. However, the worst thing about such battles is the silence. And after a long golden-green skirmish, Candid finally fell silent, giving it a maximal tension. His mouth smiled slyly, and then he quietly stated, "This dogma itself makes no differentia to us, right, Oris? Could you, for the love of God, speak English?" Enough of your dramatic banter. If these words of gold have no power, they would not have been able to incarnate such a powerful divine figure. With his right wing, Oris pointed to the thundering god at his side. The dogma itself may be demonstrate misericordia Luthedori in such a vacuum, but we have knowledge that completely devalues such mercy. What's more, it turns the little misericord of kindness in the Luthedor's soul into a bloody halberd of hypocrisy. Enlighten, Oris. How could Shrapson have been publicly executed if he had clearly decided to end his own life before his death? Wait! Candid is throwing out like our initial point. Like here's the thing, unaliving yourself doesn't go as clear. It's not as clean cut as you think. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna do it, boop, done. No, things can go wrong, and when things go wrong, it goes horribly wrong, and it becomes infinitely more painful. Despite the fact that the battle was still going on, the tension only increased after the sentence. How could Oris allow such a crack in his vision of the Duke? How could a transcendent of the point stumble at such a simple place? In a nervous voice, Oris began to justify such a crack by creating 2 golden shields around the God of Thunder. Shrapson had no time to commit suicide. There are 2 other possible scenarios. The first is refusal to commit suicide and a desire to atone for his sins in prison. The second is the arrival of the police before the suicides take place. Oh, so now you're using the ridiculous cheap tricks, Oris. Only because you keep bringing up hypotheticals, Candid. You suck! Candid's mask smiled lightly, and his words launched 2 green spears against the illusory shields. You said yourself, Oris, that Shrapson has no fate but death, so the option of the police arriving is out of the question. The green spears easily cut through the golden shield like a paper sheet. Regarding the first, it is obvious to all of us that Shrapson is too cowardly a man to wish for an expiatio in such a matter. You say yourself, Horace, he was afraid of the massive public condemnation that would follow. So how could he decide not to kill himself? You are poking holes in your own argument, you dumb tree! Ergo, without the intervention of Duke Luthedor, Strapson would have no other fate but suicide. Candid's triumph was greeted by a complete silence in the park, which lasted several seconds. Then came the dry applause from Horace. The Transcendent watched slyly as his opponent lost his head. Bravo, Candid. That was an incredible piece of deduction. I am at a loss for words to express my admiration. There's a curious state when beings are so overwhelmed by the greatness of their opponent that they no longer feel it as their own defeat. Rather, they see themselves as witnessing an incredible miracle. That is how I feel right now, and this is why I'm so happy to witness the miracle of your victory. Wow, Candid, you were so smart. Such a smart horse tree, like, oh my god. The thundering god had dissipated and disappeared in a golden glow. The way you proved the truth of my thesis, that there was no other fate for Strapson but suicide, and therefore mercy of Luthedor. The way you proved the truth of my thesis, that there was no other fate for Strapson but suicide, and therefore mercy of Luthedor, is incredibly helpful to me. Candid's mask expressed only mild irritation and perhaps a bit of disappointment. Having fallen into such a simple trap, he simply could not feel otherwise. So my curiosity reaches an almost manic level. How do you plan to break down Luthedor's thesis of mercy in relation to the horrific afterlife in the Harpy Forest, Candid? Free will. Oh, shut up about your goddamn free will. And this is coming from someone who is a major proponent of that stuff. Okay, I completely support people to choose for themselves. But you, for the love of God, Candid, shut up. Are you serious, my dear opponent? Don't you have any other arguments other than the ones you've already used in this battle? Pity that you'll have to retreat. English! English, you stupid tree! Suicide is not the only factor that determines a person's afterlife. The possibility that Strapson could have been... Stop. It's not even the point. Mercy is supposed to be selfless, but Luthedor has benefited greatly from this kind of saving of us. How did he benefit from it? Okay, maybe he benefited from it, like, indirectly, because by helping us, it helps him. Okay? He did not benefit anything from this situation. The opportunity presented itself, like there was this guy who is so insignificant in the grand scheme of the universe that they decided, okay, just kill this guy. He's about to die anyway. And you want to say that this is all a selfish ploy by freaking Luthedor? Are you stupid? You are a tree. You're a tree. You don't think. What was the benefit then? Luthedor needed to transfer Strapson's soul, overloaded with guilt for his own actions, to the Scarlet Forest. Otherwise, it will be intercepted by the Princeps Suicidi, Vianen Legumbar. Another baseless theory. What evidence is there that the Prince of Suicide was interested in Strapson? Strapson was suicidal. How could Vianen not have interest in the guy? Evidence that Vianen Legumbar had a right to Strapson's soul? Evidence that the Duke was guided by this when deciding Strapson's fate? Does anything in your theory have a basis? Again, that's the thing. That's the thing. Like, you're not even throwing theories. You're throwing hypotheses here. None of this has any basis. Horace was aggressively throwing golden spears at his opponent, unwilling to accept such statements. However, he could not deny the possibility that Luthedor had exactly this goal in mind when he killed Strapson. Neither could Candid prove that it was more than a possibility. I think it's time to decide the final of this round. The mercy of Strapson's murder is absolute. Luthedor had greedy and immoral reasons for Strapson's suicide. The first thesis that Strapson's murder had an impact on this memory was interesting, but alas, Candid provided no evidence of this. Therefore, the mercy of a painless death remains valid. The second thesis is about the fear of being judged by society. The argument about the intention of suicide is irrelevant since Luthedor protected Strapson from the judgment. If Luthedor was truly a cruel prince of guilt, he would not have allowed Strapson to commit suicide, as a judgment against him would have increased the amount of guilt in his soul. Finally, the third thesis had shown us the possibility that Luthedor could have benefited from Strapson's murder. However, first of all, this is only a possibility. And secondly, it is completely irrelevant. How is it irrelevant? Mercy is never pure and selfless. The psychology just doesn't work that way. Some people do merciful things out of vanity, others out of personal gains, and others just as a capricious nod. But this does not mean that the act ceases to be merciful. All things considered, I think Horus is the winner of this round. Yes! And thus, we have come to the inevitable. My victory. With a move of Horus's wing, the golden defensive sphere shattered into thousands of leaves, which gradually disappeared into the dull colors of the park. Horus descended to the ground in a triumphant manner and confronted his opponent with a glare. Candid, do you know the law of equivalent exchange? What? The result should be proportionate to the effort put in, but I have something else in mind. The stakes of the parties must be equal. If I lose my incident, then the same should be true for you, right? English! You just defended your incident, nothing more. Do fortress defenders get more land if the siege fails? Human defenders certainly do not, Candid. However, we are transcendents. It is in our power to ascend to such true justice, and I will do that. I have no objection. Looking down at the dejected, frightened Candid, Horus continued his speech. Unfortunately, there is an incident in your possession that is very important to me. Don't worry, it has nothing to do with Luthedor, so our future battles will be as fair as this one. This is my first defeat, Candid, and I will take it for myself with the right to rewrite it. Gah! What are your intentions regarding that battle? You have thoughtlessly lost this very incident of November 14th. Moreover, not to anyone, but to a stranger. Are you going to rewrite your defeat in a glorious victory? The defeat was not mine, Candid. I faced the brutality of a real combat for the first time, and then I was thrown away like a broken toy. And what did you do then, Candid? The only being I trusted as my mentor, an expert in such battles. Candid looked coldly at his opponent, who was not able to hide his emotions even in silence. The pause lasted a little while longer than expected, as if Horus was really waiting for an answer. However, his opponent hadn't said a word, so all he had to do was state the obvious. Nothing. And that is why you were defeated. In a battle with the king, Omul for November 14, the day of the first contract of Luthedor, Candid has lost. Simultaneously with these words, a golden magical glow formed around the Transcendents. Because of Horus, the owner of November 14th, was too inexperienced to defend himself, Candid took his place and fought with a stranger, and unfortunately was wounded. The light around Candid created a golden spear that instantly pierced the middle mask, causing the Transcendent to hiss in pain. The guilt of his own inability to defend the incident made the wound fester, and it still does. What do you mean still does? Oh my god, it's terrifying! The whiteness of the middle mask was gradually covered with red and brown spots, from which a dark liquid slowly flowed. This pus quickly hardened, turning the spots into large growths until the entire mask completely lost its white color. This is a sorrowful truth for the first battle of November 14th. Oh my god. Oh, that was a game. Anyway, that was Argumentum at Culpam. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys want to play this game for yourself, link to the game will be in the description below. This was a very interesting game. I wish they had added more illustrations in it because it was really hard to keep my focus, especially during the moments where they were having all these flashbacks. Only seeing the two sprites on the screen without having any clear visualization, it was so hard for me to maintain my focus throughout those scenes. But I did like the idea of turning a moral debate into an actual battle. That was very interesting. It kept me captivated towards the end. But anyway, thank you all so much for coming. I hope you all have a lovely rest of the day. And as always, I'll be seeing you in the next video. This is Lion, signing off. Ciao.